this. Excellent. Let's start all over again.
There we
Hello,
go.
my name is Michael Randolph, and today we're going to talk about the statement of the problem. And it's two terms we want to come away from today. One is called quantitative research, and the other is called qualitative research. And we're going to get in depth on that matter as we move along in the statement of the problem. Your statement of problem should be supported by the evidence. And we're going to talk about how do you research the evidence. You should demonstrate that the problem is feasible and manageable to solve. Let's say, for example, if you are going to take up an effort to stop the killing in the streets among young people, and you say, oh man, so many going on, I don't know what to do about it, but it's a problem. You won't get no money. You need to talk about why it is a problem, you have a solution. So you need to frame that problem in terms of a solution. And then you need to talk about state the problem and outcome in terms of human needs and societal benefit. For example, describe the need in human terms. For example, if you want to buy computers for a youth program, talk about how happy and computer literate students who will benefit in the future. Make sure you emphasize how your clientele, which is the youth, is going to benefit in the future, either from role model example, even from skill set that they learn from your organization, but also emphasize in terms of the benefit, not your organization is going to get, but the benefit to your client. And also demonstrate the need in your methodology. And we're going to talk about methodology probably in lesson 4 or 5. But the methodology is how you break down how your program is going to operate from day one. For example, the first 30 days, you should say, what do you think you should be doing the first 30 days once you receive that award and you've been told that you can go ahead and start the process of bringing it into operation? What do you think the first thing you want to do for the first 30 days?
Oh, that's a great question.
Now this is after we've already identified the students, right?
Yeah, because you got the grant now, so you better have identified the students.
Okay, so we've already
you got the award now. You wrote the grant.
Okay.
And now you have to talk about what are you going to do your first 30 days. And y'all going to kick yourself when I tell you.
Oh, okay. So I think it is, oh gosh, is it giving appreciation or thanks back to the awarder?
No, because you already thanked them probably when you received that reward.
Expectations. We're going to, oh, okay. What, will we go over the expectations?
No. What's the first thing you're going to do for the first 30 days? And y'all going to kick yourself.
Oh, man.
You're going to bring on employees.
Oh.
The first thing, see, you got to do everything in a chronological order. So the first 30 days, you're going to put information on the paper about trying to bring on staff, whether you know who you want to hire anyway, but you still have to do that.
Right.
So the first 30 days is bringing on staff, 30 to 45 days. And then when you get into day 31 up to day maybe 46, this is when you're going to do your outreach. This is when you're going to put in the paper, you're going to interview the youth. Hopefully you want to have a waiting list. And so many people are interested in your program that you got a waiting list. Once you identify that, you got your employees, you got all of your applications that they need to complete, your workshop material and all that, then on day 46 is when you actually open up your place of operation for business. Now, a lot of cases, you don't have to wait that long, but that's normally the process, no longer than that. Now, that being said, and again, I jump all the way over to the method section, which we're going to talk about in lesson 4 or 5. So, Mama, I talked about earlier, the quantitative and the qualitative, qualitative and the quantitative research. Throughout our lessons, we're going to keep coming back to these two terms right here. So let's go to the next. And here we go. Quantitative research. Quantitative research is research involving the use of structural questions where the response options have been predetermined and you're basically looking at a large number of people. Quantitative research addresses the question of the how many and the why. For example, when you start your study, your research, and now are you going to focus on Tampa first or Hillsborough County, or what's your first area and geographic area?
It's Hillsborough County.
Okay, now I'm suggesting that Hillsborough County is a large county, so you want to start with a particular community. So what particular community are you going to start in Hillsborough County?
East Tampa.
Good. Always be specific, because when you say Hillsborough County, that's a really big county. And the fund is going to say, do this guy really know how big this county is? And has he done his research? Now you've done your research and you say East Tampa. So now you identify where the area is going to be. Now you have to determine what the problem is by using quantitative research. So what you're going to do, you're going to type in Google. Google is going to be your best friend. You're going to type in Google, for example, how many young people were arrested in 2021 in the city of Tampa. Bang. It's going to come up with that number. So now you can show what the problem is. Then on the same quantitative research, you can go back in there and you're going to post a question in Google and you're going to type in, why are they getting in trouble? Because you need to add the question, the why. Now, you're probably going to get information from the University of Tampa and other think tanks that talk about the why young people are getting into trouble. And we know that most of the time they're getting into trouble is because there's no role model. But we have to show quantitative research to support that. Now, once you got your quantitative research out the way, and trust me, we're going to come back and back and back to this question throughout all of the lessons. Now you have to address the question of qualitative research. Now, qualitative research is really more subjective. Read this first paragraph to talk about qualitative research.
Qualitative research is collecting, analyzing, and interpreting data by observing what people do and say, whereas quantitative research refers to counts and measures of things. Qualitative research refers to the meanings, concepts, definitions, characteristics, metaphors, symbols, and descriptions of things.
So we do qualitative research in a number of ways. First, you can do focus groups. We can do interviews. We can do surveys, and we can do other forms of information of getting the personal reason why that person who's being studied does what he or she does. So in your case, if you're doing qualitative research, you can go to McDonald's, get some cheap hamburgers, invite some people who's affected by the problem that you're trying to solve, and ask them, why do you think young people are getting into so much trouble? Why do you think that young people are using drugs? That's what we call qualitative research, in which you go to the individual. On quantitative research, we go to the experts and we ask them. So you see the difference between the two types of research?
Yes, yes.
One is we go to the experts. That's called quantitative research. The other is called qualitative research, in which we actually go to the person themselves and try to get a feeling as to why did they do what they did. So far, so good?
Yes.
Yep.
And we can use several methods of doing research. For example, we can use fact finders. We're going to talk about that probably next week. We can use Florida Taught. That's another good research because that goes to health. And then we can go to city data, which gives an in-depth research of East Tampa in terms of the poverty level, in terms of the number of people that the crime rate in that area. It gives you all that type of information. And we're going to go through each one of these as we move through the different sections. Now, again, read the last paragraph starting with basically.
Basically, quantitative research is objective. Qualitative is subjective.
So never forget that. One is objective research, in which we go to the experts, and the other is quantitative, in which we go to the subject themselves.
Right, right.
Okay, let's move on. Now, how do we explain how community needs tie to the grant program purpose? First, there's several ways that we can track information. One is called, and y'all gonna be having to do research on all these different platforms, not now, but later on. One is a market fact finder. You can find everything here. That's the Census Bureau. The most recent data was collected for the year 2020, so that's the most recent data. The other way you can collect information is to go to government data sources, reports, plans, and community assessment. So one of the things you would do, type in, what is the community assessment for each town? Bam, come up with that research. So that's very important that you use that government data source. The other thing you can do, and I swear to you, and I don't mean to swear, this is the bomb, Google. In Google, you can put anything in the question and it will come back with an answer. You can put in the, when you do Google, you always put in the what, the when, the why, the how, and the where. Now, there's another thing you want to do. You want to compare the target population to the region and the nation. You want to compare East Tampa to Hillsborough County to the nation. That's how you do your research, because you want to make an argument that the highest propensity towards juvenile delinquency, etc., is in East Tampa compared to the region, compared to the nation. Always make an argument that your area is the worst of the worst. Then you have to demonstrate it through facts, not through anecdotal information, but through facts. And when you're doing it through facts, what's that type of research again?
Quantitative.
Quantitative research. Y'all get it already.
Right.
Normally, when I do my students, they get it by the fourth time in the session that we talk about, 4 sessions down the lane. But y'all getting it already.
Right.
Okay. And avoid jargon and rhetoric. Just give the truth and the truth. Don't throw in all those jargon and rhetoric and everything. A person will throw that grant out quickly. Now, using this format right here, no matter what you write in the grant for, these are the questions you should ask yourself. Be familiar with these questions, because part of the test that's going to be coming up, not this week, but next week, is going to be on these questions. And it's going to
be an open book test, Mike?
Huh?
It's going to be an open book test?
No, man, we know. It's going to be multiple choice.
Just joking.
Yeah, it's going to be multiple choice, because the objective is for you to learn it, not for you to spread it out. Oh, my God. Oh, boy, this is the day of the test, man. And then you can call me and say, look, you know what? We're not feeling well today. Can we see this? We got that type of test. It's a friendly test. Now, what are the questions that we should ask? Who is affected by what you're doing? Talk about what is happening. Where does the situation take place? Remember we talked about East Tampa versus Hillsborough County? This is where you talk about where it takes place. And then why is it a problem? Remember we talked about the quantitative research, where you type in a question asking why the juveniles get in trouble, and bam, different research is gonna come back. You might get something from the for example, University of Tampa saying that the reason why they get in trouble is because of their surrounding. They don't have role models, A, B, C, D.
Right.
And that NACP might say a totally different thing as to why the young people getting in trouble. It could be anywhere from discrimination.
No supervision.
There you go. It could be all those type of things. That's why you want to search different sources so you can come up with a collective understanding of why the problem exists. Then you have to adjust what's the underlying cause of the problem. Most people talk about the end result, which is the problem. But you should be talking about why is it a problem? You know, what can we do to prevent this from happening? And then you need to articulate what are the effects of this problem. So let me ask you a question. What are the effects of juveniles not having any supervision?
Crime rate increasing. What is it? What did Miss School?
Truancy.
Oh, truancy.
High truancy.
That's right. All those plus some.
Yep. Truancy,
Disrespect
crime
to the
rate.
elders, all kinds of stuff can
No
be
respect
lumped
for government.
into that effect of the problem. Because here you want to show that this affects everybody,
Yes.
not only the African American population, but everybody. For example, it's more likely that if that individual does not have supervision, and if that person is arrested, charged, and sentenced, then more likely that person is going to become a repeat offender. And it's going to drain on the system. So emphasize that when you talk about the effects of the problem. So far, so good. Any questions?
No.
No, it's great.
Let's rock and roll. Now, make sure you got an adequate picture of the problem. Convince the viewers. You got to convince these people that's a problem. And you got to convince them why they need to help solve the problem. And then you have to show how urgent the problem is. For example, you can say, well, based on our research, according to the Tampa Police Department, that the juvenile delinquency rate every year goes up by 10%. So it becomes an urgent problem because the problem is getting worse and worse.
They can be in your neighborhood by next year.
There you go. There you go. And see, that's why you want to, that's what you want to do at the end. That's when you scare them, right?
Right.
After you articulate all these things, and then at the end, guess what? It could also be in your neighborhood. This is the United States, and people got cars and transportation.
Right.
A good point. Now you got to build a strong case. You have to show that on your strategy, you can reduce not only the pain by way of incarceration, but also the pain on the Black community, on the family, on government, etc., etc., etc. Always use the most important facts and statistics and be able to verify. A lot of people throw out numbers, but they can't prove it. All right? Make sure it's credible sources. What do you think they mean by making sure it's credible sources?
I mean, with some of the things you mentioned before, like things like the data that can be proven, so
Yeah.
Well, let me give you an example. You go in the corner, there's a problem with the economy and why people are losing jobs. And you go in the corner as a crack cocaine addict. Why are people losing jobs? There's not enough crack in the world, right?
Right.
That's not a reliable source, right?
Right.
So a credible source is a reliable source. Okay, so make sure the source. For example, you ask a Ku Klux Klan person, what's wrong with Black people? Nothing wrong, they just need to be dead. So you see what I'm saying? Make sure it's credible, that the source is coming from somebody that's authentic. That's very important. Because we always get this fake news all the time. We quote sources that are not credible and we act as if it is. And do not make claims that go beyond the data.
right.
Don't make claims beyond the data. And use hard and soft data. Let me ask you a question. What do you think hard data is of the two types of research?
The quantitative data would be considered hard data.
Good. Good, 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 good. And what would we consider soft data?
Qualitative.
Qualitative data.
Good, good, good. So hard data is statistics and facts. That's
Mhm.
hard data.
Yeah.
Soft data is stories and anecdotal information. So what have we learned so far? That quantitative data is the same as hard data.
Right.
Mhm.
And qualitative data is the same as soft data. Why is it important? Because when you're speaking to a politician or a fundraiser, a grantor or something like that, you want to use quantitative and qualitative. When you're speaking to the community, you don't usually use terms like that. This use hard and soft data. Depending upon you who you talk to, that determines the terminology that you use. If you ask a average person who's in the street and you come at them with quantitative and qualitative data, they looking at you like, what?
Right.
But if you use terms like hard and soft data, then they're more likely to understand what you're saying. Do not use circular reasoning and show people that people will use your program. Now, how can you show that people was going to use your program? What's one way to show that people are going to use your program?
I guess by expressing the need.
Yeah, I think, just by expressing the need or showing the need. I think with everything that we've spoken of, shown before that point, we'll express, and then about showing about our program, we'll express the need for our program.
I see you trying, my brother, but the
I'm
fact
trying.
is,
I'm trying.
You show by doing an interview. You show by doing surveys. That in a recent survey of 20 at-risk youth, we found that they're more likely to be interested in a program like ours. That's what we mean by show that people will come to your program. You do a survey.
Okay.
You do a focus group. You have to say it's not my word, but we went out and we did the what type of data?
We spoke to people. We just talked about it.
What type of data?
Is it the
Qualitative
data. Yep.
Like I told you, I'm gonna keep on using that term. Keep on
Qualitative,
using that term. Because no matter what we do, it falls back into one of those two categories.
Yep. Well, we met with
so good.
So far, yep, we good.
Okay, let's go. Let's rock and roll. Now, this is a repetition of what we talked about earlier about the problem statement. Guess what? Another word for problem statement is need statement. And it should be anywhere from 3 to 4 pages, depending upon the grantee. For example, if it's a small grant, then they probably want only a paragraph. But if it's a bigger grant, then they're gonna want even more. I've voted grants in which the problem statement was like 10 pages long.
Wow.
10 pages long. That's because we was going for millions of dollars.
Okay.
So you better put everything you can in there, including the kitchen sink.
Did you get it, Michael? Were you guys awarded it?
Oh yeah, we got it. Definitely. Because we was able to show 10 different sources that was saying the same thing, but they was coming from 10 different sources. So we made a convincing argument by the fact that it was a problem, not by what we say, but what the facts show.
Gotcha. Okay.
So
and then
you're stating each page should be from a different source.
Well, it might not be a page, but each paragraph or page should be a source to be quoted where you got that information from. Like, according to the Tampa Police Department, last year, they saw a 10% increase in the number of at-risk youth that were arrested. Quote that particular source. Either at the beginning by saying according to, or at the end of the statement, source, Tampa Police Department. Okay. All right, make sure you describe the target population. Describe your target population.
At-risk youth,
Ages.
from ages 10 to 18.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Help us with that a little bit, Michael,
Yes.
because I
Well,
mean,
the first thing you need to throw in there is to say black. You
See,
need to
we-
make
I-
sure
we
because
didn't-
we
I didn't-
know when you
I
do
didn't
all
know-
the research out there that African Americans are more likely, even the Hispanic, to be
Oh, yeah, we did.
having to do with the system. So make sure you start off with black African Americans, or however you want to use that term, and then make an argument that according to the Tampa Police Department, the #1 group of arrests were among African Americans.
Michael, let me ask you, you don't think it's better to just say at risk and not?
No, because at risk could be anything. You don't want to be too ambiguous. You want to be specific. Because even when you write for grants, they would tell you African American.
Right.
Okay, what about the
grants
what
don't
about the
say
Hispanic
at
kids?
risk, they say African American.
What about the Hispanic kids that are living in East Tampa? I mean, you know, what about those kids that
No, you
even-
could. Well, if that's your target population, you could say African Americans and Hispanic.
Okay,
But the only problem with that, we always get that our Hispanic group is gonna come up and say, hold on. We represent the Hispanics. So you can put them there, but I will bet you 2-1 that some Hispanic group is gonna come up and say, nah, that's a conflict because we're going for the same grant. You know.
okay,
So you can, but the problem is, I'm gonna tell you, the nonprofit world is a dirty, dirty world. Yeah, it's a dirty, dirty world.
so we'll target African American. So we'll, like you say, we'll target that.
But this is just for grant writing wise, but
Yeah,
you
this
know,
is grant writing wise, right?
outside of that, we wouldn't normally say it, but
Yeah,
grant.
yeah. Only in terms of
Okay.
grant and what have you, right?
Okay.
Because you'd be surprised at the black organization with money that will give you money.
Okay,
From
okay,
entertainers to celebrities, you name it.
okay.
Okay.
Honestly, it's so much money out there once you frame it like that.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Even banks, let me give you an example. There was a study that just came out. And the study showed that, and this is by the Hillsborough County Commission. The study that came out that showed in East Tampa and West Tampa, blacks, they didn't say Hispanics, white, blacks were realigned more so than any other group. Any other group, right? So you can even use that data when you go for your grant to make an argument why East Tampa, because the most recent study that came out showed that African Americans as a group was more like redlining. What that mean? The property of their houses was underrated. They gave them less for their property as opposed to a white community. The same house, same size. If you're in South Tampa, it might be like, for example, 400,000. In West and East Tampa, because you're in the black community, that same house is 100,000. So
Right.
that affects the very nature of the people that live in that neighborhood.
Right.
Okay, and then you need to give a definition of the community problem to be addressed and service areas that's needed. So all that information should be part of that target population. And again, I don't want to stop you from saying Hispanics, because you should go wherever your heart.
No, we gonna like you say, for grant writing purposes, we definitely gonna go with the African American target population. So
Excellent. Because again, when we talk about the worst of the worst, and when you're going for grants, you're always going for the worst of the worst. That means even if a Hispanic group was going against you, and they did that research, they would say, look, based on this research, African Americans are the ones that most need it. Because we know in the Hispanic community, you got way more things in place than we do in the African American community. But again, when you make your public face, it's everybody. When you make it your grandpa face, it's
One specific group.
right,
yes. There you go. Learn how to play politics, depending upon who you talk
Right.
to.
right.
I'm all about black, but if I'm talking to the general population, I'm saying everybody.
Right.
We all need to do this. But my grant is gonna say, no, we need this worse. So you
Yep.
see what I'm saying? It's all about the politics.
Yep.
Okay, let's continue on.
When you're saying, if you can go back, Michael, well, right here, when you're saying number 2, definition of community problem to be addressed and service area need, can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, this is when you want to break this down to talk about there is the service when you're based on your survey, based on your research, you talk about the service that's needed. You can talk about a mentor program. You can talk about a tutoring program, all those services you think is needed in order to solve the problem. Once you identify the problem, now you have to talk about the services that you're going to provide. Now, I know you talk about mentor program. What are some other services you're going to provide to the target population?
Along with the mentorship,
Tutoring is something,
Tutoring.
like you said.
Good.
and technology assist, well, not technology assistance, but like more in the engineering STEM program,
Good. Good.
like twice a month to be able to provide that to the kids to give them an additional skill.
Good. So you want to list all that plus. As we get closer and closer towards actually putting the grant together, then I'm gonna pull out of you even more things that you need to address. For example, one of the number one reasons that African Americans are in the position that they're in is because, especially young people, it's because of lack of financial literacy.
Yeah.
We get in trouble because of that. We get in debt because of that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a key. And not only that, if you address it as in the frame of African Americans, guess what? The banks are going to give you money. Because they also perceive that African Americans need financial literacy. Why do you think banks want to give you money for financial literacy?
Is it banks?
Banks.
Banks,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Because they want you to use their services. Bank of America,
Yeah.
Chase Bank, yeah, they're going to give you money. Because
Right.
they know when you teach those person financial literacy, they got to
Right.
come to a bank.
Right.
Right.
Right. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
think so strategically when you're going for your money.
Right.
Who is it that has a vested interest in this? Well, in financial literacy, it's going to be banks and financial institutions.
You know, that's one thing. That's one of the things I actually agree that Governor DeSantis just passed. He's going to make it mandatory that they start teaching young people in high school about financial literacy in school, in high school. So yeah. I
Yeah,
agree.
that's a necessity, and they're doing it a lot, man. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, a lot of us blacks are not in that. So that means we got like programs like yours, got to go to the streets and teach those that drop out of school or something
Right.
like that. That's
I
why
agree.
your program becomes so important.
Yep. I
Because
agree.
most of the programs that get towards those kids are going to do well anyway.
Right. Right. Right.
But a lot of us, especially if you're black, we're not. We got the highest high school dropout rate around in the country.
You're right.
Right.
Yep.
So you definitely want to focus on that as a key focus. And then another thing you want to focus on, because it's a crisis in the African American community, especially among young that's doing so much suicide, is mental health.
Yes.
So
Yep.
you want to add that also to your services. By the time I'm finished with y'all gonna have a whole list of services.
My Lord, yes.
And for every list of services, guess what? It's a pot of money you can go for.
Right.
It's all about being strategic.
You know, let me ask you this too, Michael. I know we getting way up there, but another thing, you know, we talked about too, I think that, you know, the African American population, especially the youth, need to get on board with is IT. That's IT is the future, like tech, the tech field, STEM.
Yeah, you must be reading my mind. That's
Yeah.
why I'm starting a technology center.
Technology.
We way out
STEM.
when it comes to technology and African Americans, man, it's pitiful. I be
It's
telling
pitiful.
young people the most powerful tool you have in your hand. What do you think the most powerful tool they have in their hand?
Probably that their smartphone or
Their smartphone, my buddy, right?
you know?
Right there. If we teach them how to use that smartphone to
Mhm.
change their quality of life, For example, you don't have your GED. Well, look, go there and take GED online. There you don't have to worry about being embarrassed. And it goes
Right.
on and on and on. But technology is very important. Now, what we're doing in West Tampa, I put together a strategy for the technology center, and we're just going to teach young people how to do artificial intelligence, how to do coding,
Right.
how to
Right.
do a game application, mobile application, a
Right.
web page, all those high fields in terms of technology. Why is that important? If you go to the supermarket right now, what you're going to see is machines that's taking over food. You
Mm-hmm.
can take whatever product you have and self-sign out.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Now, they have a store, and we better watch out in the United States. They have a store in California. Guess what? When you go to that store, there's nobody in there.
No people. Yeah.
You go in there, you buy your product, you walk out, and as you're walking out, it'll ring you up.
Yep.
The future is technology. And right now, as a population, and I hate to get sidestepped it, most African Americans are in the service field. And those
Right.
service jobs are quickly being wiped out.
Yes.
For example. And I was had an argument about one of the community development corporation as to our strategy was getting us to the next level in their strategy. Their strategy was no, our strategy is to teach young people how to do construction and do stuff like that. I said, here's the problem. In 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
5 years, they're gonna make right now, as a matter of fact, but it's gonna be mainstream in the next 2 to 3 years. They can make houses in the factory and send them to your location. So what are you gonna do now with the people?
Right.
If you don't focus on technology and jobs of the future, you're doing a disservice.
You know what, Michael? I follow I try to follow local business here in Tampa, and lately, I've been watching Jane Castor, and you have these tech startups coming
Yes.
to Tampa now, and these tech startups are recruiting people and nothing but white people. You know what
Yes.
I'm saying? Because we don't have black people that are in these fields, and that's what I'm talking.
Yes.
That's the future, Michael.
Right.
Yes,
And that's
and guess
what we're
what, my
talking
brother? That's why I'm starting a tech center in West Tampa, heavy populated African American community. Man, you get
Yep. Yep.
if we don't do it ourselves, man, nobody's gonna do for us.
Right. Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
So you're
Yeah.
right on that, man. When they
Yep.
talk about tech, what people don't understand, they mean white people.
Yep.
Mhm.
That's
Yep,
what they
that-
mean.
that's-
They don't
that's what
mean
they mean.
us.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Yep.
Now, suppose that little kid that's on the corner with that gun in their hand.
Right.
Suppose I attract that young person to a tech,
Mhm.
and now that person is doing software development.
Right.
Or
Right.
that person that's on the corner with that gun, suppose now we bring him in and show him how to do game application.
Right.
And it
Right.
goes on and on
Yep.
and on, man, on how we can change the narrative. Because you can't go to that young man in the corner when he's making $5,000 a day selling drugs.
Right.
Right.
You
Right.
can't go to him with a minimum wage job. The only way you can go to him is to give him something compatible that's legal, and
Right.
he can make way more money. Technology offers us that.
Technology. You're
That's
right.
right.
Yep.
That's right.
Yep. Yep.
Definitely.
Yep.
Okay, let's continue on. Now, what does it need statement? Read the first one.
Okay. The need you address must be clearly related to your nonprofit's mission and purpose.
Now, you focus on youth, right?
Mhm.
But yet, if your program coming down the pipeline for seniors, what's wrong with that?
For seniors,
Then it's not
Yes,
focused.
it's not focused
Yeah.
on.
It's
Yes, it's not persons on your mission and your
Right.
purpose. So
Right.
many nonprofits lose their way. They begin to do things that's not related to their mission and their purpose.
Right.
Okay. Mhm.
Okay, next.
It should focus on those people you serve rather than your organizational nation's needs.
Right. If you want to focus on your organizational needs, then go for a capacity grant.
Right.
If you're dealing with youth, talk about the problem related to youth and how you're going to solve that problem. Some people will say, well, the problem is we don't have no money. Mercy. I know funders pull their hair out when they say, no, you talking about your organization. That's not the problem. The problem is that young people need help. It's not the fact that you don't have money. The funder will, look, they won't even read the rest of your grant if you put that in as part of the problem.
Right, right.
Hey, let's continue on.
It should be well supported with evidence such as statistical facts, expert views, and trends.
Exactly. Make sure it's based with facts and not some junkie on the corner, not some KKK member or anything like that. Make sure it's supported by the facts. Don't do one of Donald Trump numbers when he say fake news and he make up his own news.
Right.
That news is fake news, but he always talk about fake news.
Right, yeah.
He's an expert. He has experts. I always tell folks we need to take this playbook, you know?
Exactly.
Right.
He said he got the biggest crowds. The
right.
biggest crowds.
That's right.
Yeah.
Now, when we talk about the statement of problem, here's an example of a statement of problem. Read the first paragraph.
Okay, the need for the breast cancer prevention project is great. The
Hold on
American
1 second. See how quickly they talk about what they're going to talk about. And what are they going to talk about?
the need for the breast cancer
They're going to talk
prevention.
about breast cancer.
Mhm.
Okay, continue.
The American Cancer Society estimates that 203,500 new cases of invasive breast cancer are expected to occur among women in the United States in 2002. Of that number, 5,345 will be in every county.
Hold on. What type of research is that?
Quantitative. Yeah.
Remember they talking about numbers, folks. Okay, continue.
Quantitative. Yeah.
In comparison of each state's 48 counties, the second highest incidence rate is projected to be in Big County with 1,850 new cases. Similarly,
Hold on 1 second. See how they compare.
Yeah.
They compared their county to the other 48 counties. Remember we talked about earlier? You have to show that your problem is worse than the state,
local,
the
and
county,
nation.
etc.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, continue.
Similarly, every county leads the state in deaths anticipated from breast cancer in 2002 with 1,160, with Big County again a distant second with 395 anticipated deaths.
Notice how they show how bad the problem is.
Right.
Right. Right.
That is really bad.
Next paragraph.
Oh, that's you talking.
Women who have breast cancer and who are employed may lose or need to leave their jobs or take significant amounts of time off for treatment, resulting in lack of source of income.
Hold on. See how they talk about the fact that breast cancer not only affects them physically, but also they can lose their job or have to take on another job. Emphasize the implication of the problem.
Right. Yep. Yep. Telling us now they're telling like a story. This is the story.
Okay, you see it, my friend.
Yeah.
You always tell the story. People
story.
be writing grants. I say tell the story.
Yep.
All right.
Or they may find their incomes drained by the cost of health care. They may also lose their health insurance, custody of their children, or their housing because of discrimination or periodic hospitalization. This is
See
definitely
the ramification. It's not this breast cancer.
Yep.
See how they are able to articulate it's more than just the physical. They talk about the implication,
Right.
ranging from losing their job to cost of healthcare to in some cases losing their health insurance.
Yeah. That's
Okay,
yeah.
continue on.
Some women stay in abusive relationships to keep their insurance.
Hold on. Listen, read that again.
Some women stay in abusive relationships to keep their insurance.
And that's true. Not only do they have to deal with the physical illness of breast cancer, now they have to go through some pain to their significant other because they can't do no better. See how these people are able to tell that story. And
Right.
every
Yeah.
paragraph you see, they're going to tell it even more. It's like telling a story.
Yeah.
Even if a woman has access to coverage, many insurers will not cover a breast cancer survivor for up to 10 years after recovery.
Okay?
Many of the women we serve have been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, meaning that they do not have 10 years, nor will they recover. The illness itself, plus weeks or months of treatment, often causes women to become fatigued, depressed, and malnourished. The need for preventive outreach and early detection is clearly great.
All right. See how they ended it by saying the need for preventive outreach and early detection is clearly great. And how did they make that argument? By the facts.
By the facts.
They quote the American Cancer Society and others to make an argument. Look how they ended. The need for preventive outreach and clear and early detection is clearly great. And it's great based on the research. Let's continue.
Yes. All right, you want us to keep reading, Michael?
Yep.
All right. The groups targeted for outreach through this project are among the most underserved women for health education services, women of color, homeless women, and lesbians, all of whom are low income and age 40 and over.
Excellent. Let me stop 1 second. See how they identify that population: women of color,
Mhm.
homelessness, homeless woman, and lesbian.
Mhm.
They don't say it's a general population. They
Right.
Right.
specify on the particular target group: women of
Right.
color, homeless woman, and lesbian.
Yeah, low income
Okay.
and age. Yeah.
Now, let's continue on. And I can tell you this right now, related to radiation, chemo and all that, that's not a pretty thing, man. I had to go through chemo when I had to go through what part of my lung being removed because of cancer. So I can imagine what females have to go through if they have to have their breast removed. And I hope they talk about the psychological damage that they go through once they have their breast removed, as well as the physiological. So continue on.
The causes of breast cancer are not fully known. Risk factors include heavy exposure to radiation, excessive alcohol consumption, poor nutrition, lack of exercise, stress, smoking, exposure to hormones, aging, family or personal history of breast cancer, and race. In addition, according to the Breast Cancer Fund, hundreds of scientific studies have drawn links between cancer and exposure to toxic chemicals found in the environment.
Okay, they're getting deep with this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Furthermore, scientists have identified 2 specific genes that are important in the development of breast cancer.
These people did their research.
They did. This is a great example. Women who are homeless do exhibit several of these risk factors because of their living situations, including alcohol and drug abuse, which is common. Lesbian women may receive inadequate health care because of poor treatment from providers who are uncomfortable with them. Immigrant women of color who do not speak English well may be afraid to seek health care if they are undocumented. For these reasons and more, the project is crucial to the women of this community.
Okay, now what didn't they have in here? When you read all that data, which is good, what didn't they have? What do you think?
Did they sit down and talk to people?
Oh,
There
survey.
you go. They didn't have a personal story.
Yeah.
That's
they-
good.
yeah.
You see what
Qualitative.
I'm saying? They didn't have a personal story. It should have
Right.
ended with a personal story. Of course,
Right.
Miss Jones, who
Right.
has been out of work for 3 years. Mrs. Jones first ran into a problem. She was diagnosed, and then talk about how she lost her job. Talk about how she divorced. That's how you bring it home. It got
Right.
to get very personal. about that story as well. And that should be at the end. And this is what I thought they was going to say when I looked at this.
Right.
And I say, if I had to grade this, I give them an 80%. Why do you think I'm giving them an 80%?
Because they didn't include that, yeah.
It's just worth 20%.
Right.
Mhm.
That 20%, when you talk about the individual story, that's what it's worth. It's worth 20% of the statement of the problem.
Right.
You got to paint a picture to it. You see what I'm saying? A
Yeah.
real life picture to it.
Right.
Good enough. Now, hold on 1 second. Read the last one.
All right. If the project were not undertaken, low-income Port Beach area women at risk for developing breast cancer would not be able to receive in their own communities health education and prevention services designed to minimize their risk.
Hold on. That's what you need to emphasize in your proposal. If this project is not undertaken in East Tampa, these are the outcomes. Increased number of people that's affected in the juvenile criminal system, family breakup, on and on and on. You always have to show what happens if nothing is done. Okay.
That's good. You're right. Since the women we serve are low income, including some who are homeless, they have limited access to similar resources that may be available in other areas. The fact that Saks House goes directly into shelters means that we reach women who would ordinarily not access health education services, those who are at highest risk for serious health problems.
Now you paint the picture that if nothing is done, this is what will happen. And this is why we are so important into the larger scheme of things. Now, your assignment for next class, and I'm going to write you a list of the things you want to include is to develop a need statement for your program.
All
And
right.
I'll send you the different questions that I want you to ask during that need statement.
Okay.
Don't worry about it. This is your first one. So if you just get it totally backwards, I don't care. As long as you don't get it totally backwards when we do this number 5 and number 6. You see what I'm saying? The first time is good to go. This need statement is so important. So we're just going to do, I'm going to do some basic stuff, questions. This is develop a basic need statement. And I'm going to ask you, what are the things that need to be inclusive in that need statement? And it's going to be a multiple choice until we start to write the real need statement. For example, it could go somewhere like this. If one of the major reasons why young people are more likely of African American are more likely to get into trouble is because they don't have any role models, because the educational system is failing them, because their parents at home are failing them, or because they don't get enough ice cream. Now, which one is wrong with that?
You said because they don't get enough ice. You said ice cream?
Yes.
Okay.
So clearly, that's the one. That's how easy the test is going to be.
Okay. All right. Hey.
Wow.
Now I did. Now when I was a young man, Michael, I did get pissed off when I didn't get my ice cream. Now
I know, but that probably didn't cause you to go and commit crime.
no, I didn't.
It got you mad with your mother. She probably gave you a beating and you shut
Yeah,
up.
she did. Yeah, she did. Yeah. I ain't.
So, yeah, man. It's gonna be questions like that I'm gonna throw in there. That you're gonna say, yeah, no, this is definitely not part of the scenario of developing a need statement.
All right.
Now, what's another word for need statement?
You covered it midway. You said start with a P.
It's called what?
Statement of problem. What was it?
Statement of problem.
Yeah.
Terms are used interchangeable in the grant world.
Statement.
One might call it a need statement. Somebody else might call it a statement of the problem. So be wary of that And that's why I'm teaching you both terminology.
Did it right.
A need statement might be something that the federal government puts in, and then other grants might be a statement of the problem.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, as in every class, I ask you two things that you learned today.
Quantitative research and qualitative
Yes.
There you
research.
go. Look,
Those
you
are
get
the
a
two
bonus,
things.
right?
Yes.
Bonus. When I tell you that even when we get to lesson 10, that quantitative and qualitative research will still come up.
Yeah.
Okay.
So get familiar with those terms, get it like in your head.
Yeah.
And don't just get familiar with it, but make sure you start using it.
Yep.
Okay.
Quantitative and qualitative. You're going to impress those people that are giving funds out because
Right.
they know you know the language. On the
Mhm.
other hand, when you're talking to like regular people, you use terms like hard and soft.
Right.
Okay.
And another term they use, you might want to put this in your vocabulary as well. It's called anecdotal. That means from the person, and empirical data. That's when you that's objective.
Okay.
So when you get this, make sure you write down those three different terms: quantitative, qualitative, hard, soft, quantitative versus empirical. So when you get this right, those are the three terms we use in order to define a statement and do the research for a statement of the problem.
Okay.
Okay, so it's gonna be a short class today. I'm gonna be getting you these questions out for next class. Then we can talk about the next class, and guess what? We're gonna continue on with the statement of the problem. We're gonna get even in depth. We might do 2 or 3 classes on the statement of the problem. That's when you know it's very serious, because everything else is irrelevant. If you cannot define the statement of the problem, that problem is not going to be beyond your statement of the problem.
Okay.
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 Everything is fine on your statement of the problem. Notice how these people did it. You know they got this grant.
Right.
That's how
Right.
they did that research.
Right.
They took it from A to B. They killed it.
Yep.
That's how you got to do it when you're talking about a statement of the problem. You have to show the sources. But like I said, the only thing they didn't do in this statement of the problem is, unfortunately, they didn't give a real picture of a real person.
Right.
You
They
always
did a
do
good
that.
job.
That's
They did a
the
good
lab.
job. They did a good job of telling the story, but like you said, they didn't have a real person.
Right. Which
Yeah.
means that if another person did the same grant, it was just as detailed, but they added that personal story. Who you
Right.
think would get the grant?
The one with the person.
The one with
Exactly.
the person.
Exactly. Because they come in with the facts and the personal story.
Yep.
Right.
And grants are very competitive out here. Very competitive. You always want to give that personal story at the end.
Yep.
Because other than that, our organization is going to be just as thorough in putting that grant together.
Right.
So the only thing you got, and that's at 20%, is that personal story. You know, tell that personal story about that person. You're gonna find it when you're doing your focus groups and everything like that. You're gonna find that one story that stands out. It might be that young person to talk about how his mother, his father, his grandmother, everybody, nobody had faith in him. And because of that, he didn't care about himself. And he's going to talk about how, when he found somebody to care, it changed his whole perspective.
Yep.
So you don't put that type of story. Yeah. So people can reach down in their heart. Like I say, remember last week we talked about doing the conclusion, and the last page you can get emotional.
Yes.
You want to get emotional during that particular period of time. So, any other questions before we close out today? Again, I apologize for the day, because I tell you, I was just laying up in bed saying, yeah, well, I can chill out. It's Saturday. I got the 12. And the son said, maybe you don't. And then I went back to check the message. I said, oh man, I jumped right online, right? I'm glad, because y'all probably say, hold on. We're supposed to be here at 11 o'clock. Where's Mike? But anyway, gang, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Let me cut off this recording.